This is a new indie brand to me, and I have been so intrigued ever since they launched their very first palette, and that is Titanium Foxes. And I'm going to be talking about the Poppy Quiet palette, which is their second palette that they've launched, and definitely so far they've been really knocking it out of the park in terms of color story. So wait till you see this one. This is the outside packaging of the palette. It's nice and simple, which their first palette is actually called Poppy Storms. It seems to be a theme, so I was definitely very intrigued right off the bat. But this is the inside color story, and I just love it. When I open this, I feel so inspired. It's a little bit more like slightly grungier tones in here, which I think is very interesting. And then there's a variety of really shiny, beautiful, smooth, metallic shimmer shades. So I was very intrigued, and I was like, I'm gonna buy this palette. And I was very tempted to buy the bundle of both of the palettes because the color story of that one is also absolutely stunning. And because it's a French-based brand, the shipping is definitely a little bit more expensive. So let me just quickly talk about the pricing. So the palette retails for €57 and some change, and then the shipping was €17 and some change. So definitely on the higher end, as I am US based and the palette is coming from France. So in total USD, I paid $85. So essentially this palette cost me $85, which I think is definitely pretty expensive, but I feel like that's become kind of partially the standard. That being said, I think that is definitely something to keep in mind. I think if you're EU based, it will be a great option for you. So I'm going to show you individual swatches of each of the shimmer shades. We're just going to talk about the shifts and the texture of them. And then I'll do 2 looks at the palette, and I'll give you some of my thoughts at the end of the video. So let's get right into it. Sunrise Dew. It's a little bit of a darker lilac with just a tad bit of a grayish base to it. And it shifts to a very pale yellow, maybe slightly leaning peachy depending on the lighting. And it feels very smooth and not squishy in the pan. Silk Light is an iridescent multichrome, and it has a really bright pink flash straight on with a little bit of a grayish teal base to it. It has orange, it has yellow, and it shifts to like a little bit green on a really harsh angle. You can definitely see a bit of yellow and gold in there as well. It is super shifty. This one is a little bit flaky, but it smooths out and picks up really nicely. And this one has just a little bit of creaminess to it, but it's not particularly squishy in the pan. Poppy Gem is a smoky purple with quite a bit of a black base. I think you can see a little bit more on the edges, so it is what I would consider a black base multichrome. And it shifts to a kind of like lime green all the way to a really bright forest green, which is so interesting. It's super smooth, very pigmented, and very metallic. It is such a stunning shade, not squishy or anything like that. Very finely milled pigment for sure. Full Glam Poppy is a vibrant ultraviolet with a little bit of a tealish base to it. And I see a yellow and peach shift in it as well. It's just got a lot of shifts in it. Super dimensional, very smooth, very shiny. It is absolutely stunning. I love this one. It doesn't feel squishy, but it is a little bit, just maybe tiniest bit on the creamy side. Blue Fly is a very bright, beautiful blue that shifts just a little bit to a purple, and this one is very smooth, but it is a little bit on the thicker side. Feels a little bit different from the rest of the shimmer shades in the palette. Jewel Beetle is green straight on with a little bit of a reddish brown base to it, and it shifts to a purple, but in between there's a really interesting kind of blue leaning gunmetal color there. So right now when I'm looking at the pan from my point of view and the way the light is shining on it, it looks like a grayish blue, which is so interesting. A very dimensional, very shifty kind of shade, and this one feels very smooth and not creamy. And the last shade is Poppy Cry, which is another iridescent shade, and this one is a neon green straight on with a little bit of a yellow base, which I'm not sure if it's capturing here, but in person I can see it a little bit on an angle. And it shifts to blue to purple, but the blue is kind of like, there's a bunch of different variations of blue, and then the purple as well. So it's not just like only an aqua, it kind of is a bunch of different blues. It is super dimensional, it's very smooth. It has a little bit of an emollient feel to it, so it does feel kind of creamy, but it's not squishy in the pan. And a little bit goes a long way. It is very opaque upon just first application. Very punchy. Picked up Contemplation. I'm going to put that onto the inner crease here. Just a little bit more. I feel like it's stuck down a little bit. I'm using the Natasha Denona eyeshadow primer. wiped off the brush and I'm taking Far Mountain, and it's going to go on the outer portion. Taking a smaller brush and just running it underneath my lower lash line. And just blending it outwards. Picked up shadow, that's just going to go right on this outer corner. Just kind of tapping it down first and extending it underneath my lower lash line as well. And I'm going to try to keep it very controlled out here, blending it into the blue, which I really like the way that those two look mixed. That looks so pretty. I'm going to take a little bit more of Far Mountain and just blend it into shadow. I have a little tiny bit of fallout, just like right here. Just gonna push up and then wipe off my brush and just kind of feather the edges with nothing on the brush. Putting down a little bit of the Fahrenheit Pixie Epoxy. Picked up Sunrise Dew and I'm just gonna put that onto the outer lid into the dark shade. A little bit on an angle. Super shiny, really, really pretty. And then picked up Full Glam Poppy, and that's gonna go on this inner corner. Super, super shiny. Oh my goodness. That's so pretty. So pretty. And then I'm gonna put it on the inner corner as well a little bit in here. Here's the first finished look. For the second look, I primed with the Pat McGrath eyeshadow primer just to see how the mattes work on a non-slightly tacky remaining primer, because this one does definitely set down. I'm taking Velvet Light and putting that into my inner crease. Definitely feel like this is applying differently on this primer. Definitely better application, I would say. I'm just gonna kind of feather it outwards here. And then I do want to take Newborn Poppy and I'm just gonna put it right in here. And then also flick it out. Picking up Poppy Shadow for the outer corner. I'm gonna kind of put it on a thick wing kind of angle and blend it onto my lid, but trying to keep away from the peach and the pink. And I'm just gonna slowly blend this out. I'm gonna really wipe off this brush so there's no more product. I'm just blending out whatever pigment is laid down on my skin. Then I'm also gonna bring that underneath the lower lash line. Really wanna just blend this out. Down here, taking the Fahrenheit Pixie Epoxy kind of all over the lid here and just tapping it, spreading it, and also making sure there's just not too much on my lid. Taking Jewel Beetle and layering it on an angle. I feel like there's a little bit of hollow in this. I don't think this palette has hollow in it. And then I think I'm gonna take Silk Light. Right, ooh. That was a good combo right here. I'm gonna pump that right above it. I have just a tiny bit of fallout here, and I'm again gonna go in with this brush. This is like a Lethal Cosmetics blending brush, but it's way too big for my preference, so I'm just gonna use it to kind of feather the edges further and blend away any fallout. That looks so pretty. I do want to bring that on my inner corner just a little bit, just a tad. And then I really want to use Poppy Cry underneath my lower lash line, so we're gonna do that. And I'm gonna pick it up on a brush, and then I'm just gonna mist it with some water. And I'm gonna try to just put it right underneath. Oh my god, that is so punchy. Oh, that is so pretty. Just gonna use this blending brush just to blend the edges. Here's the second finished look. Again, color story, 10 out of 10. I mean, I feel like there's so many looks you could create with this palette. It is such an inspiring color story. Definitely captured my attention, and the first palette too, but I do kind of prefer this color story a little bit more. Keep in mind that this is just kind of a first impression since I have only used the palette twice. I did use the shade Silk Light once before, just all over the lid. So no mattes, it's just a shimmer shade, and it did crease on me a little bit. So some of these shades are a little bit like very ever so slightly just a little bit more emollient, so you might have some creasing issues. So definitely make sure to like use a really good eyeshadow primer that is set, or maybe with a tacky primer to really help with wear time. If you have hooded oily lids, I gotta say these shimmers though, they feel absolutely exquisite. I'm so excited about them. Poppy Cry is just so shiny, so smooth, so metallic, really packs such a punch. I definitely want to wear this one all over the lid for sure. I love that there's 3 more kind of iridescent-y shades that are more topper-like to have with these mattes. I think it adds so much versatility to the palette. So let's talk about the mattes. I feel like they feel kind of like a standard matte formula. I did notice that they did not work the best on a primer that remains a little bit kind of tacky in a like a grippy way, not in like a put a shimmer down tacky kind of way. It doesn't really set on its own. It just remains a little bit tacky, which some formulas tend to work great on those and some don't. And I definitely think this is a formula that doesn't work the greatest, but this formula works great on primers that are like the Pat McGrath primer where it sets down. But I will keep you updated as I only use the 6 matte shades once so far. So I definitely want to dip back into the mattes and try them out, maybe try them out with some other eyeshadow primers, and then really let you know my full thoughts. I will definitely be featuring this in my June ranking video, so stay tuned for that. I will give you my full thoughts in that video. So let me know in the comments below if you picked up this palette or the previous palette. How are you liking them? I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm definitely keeping an eye on this brand. I'm very intrigued just to see the level of just cohesion with the color stories. And that's everything for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.